Hello and welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at this little guy. This is the BayangToys X9. Now, as you might be able to tell from this, it is a 4-channel quadcopter, works on 2.4 gigahertz wireless, and it's supposedly a clone of the Blade Nano QX. But the very cool thing about it is, it also supposedly works extremely well outdoors, so it's like wind grade 3 to 4. But let's go ahead and open the box and see what comes inside. On the top, of course, you see the quadcopter itself. We'll put that off to the side for right now. But once you get into the package, you'll find a bunch of documentation. It's actually very, very in-depth documentation, but unfortunately, it's a little bit inaccurate. We'll get into that here in a minute. You'll find a battery for the quadcopter. You'll see here it is a 3.7 volt, 150 milliamp hour battery, and it's a bit of a peculiar size. So unfortunately, none of the other batteries I've got is going to work with this. It also comes with a small screwdriver, like most of them do nowadays, a USB charging cable, and a spare set of 4 props. The controller is a really decent size, and actually it looks very, very similar to a bunch of other controllers out there. For example, the FY326 controller. I've been using that device for quite a while now, and put them side by side, they're very, very similar to each other. It's sort of hard to tell them apart, aside from just a slight size difference. But the controller does take 4 AA batteries, so do be prepared for that. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the quadcopter itself. As you can see, the version that I'm looking at is bright green. From what I understand, there are actually 2 versions of this. You've got the original one that came out a little while back, and then this one, which is the newer model. With the newer model, they made a few changes. It's still the same sort of look and feel, but it does add in Headless Mode. But again, we'll get back to that in a second. So just looking at the body itself, it's very, very thin, it's very lightweight, there's not a whole lot to it. If you took off this canopy, you would have next to nothing left. The prop guards, they appear to be completely built in. It said somewhere in the manual that you could take them off, and they're a little bit close to the props themselves. Now, once you put the 4 AA batteries in the back of this, you'll notice you have to put a screw back in there. It does not close. The controller will not stay closed without that little screw. Definitely very handy that they included the teeny tiny screwdriver. But once you're all ready to go, you get the battery installed, which can be a little bit of a chore as well. It's a little difficult to actually get it in there, but it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, once you get it all ready to go, you get it all hooked up, you plug the battery in, you turn on the controller, and you don't actually have to do anything to pair it. They automatically pair to each other, which is extremely nice. It's got 4 LED lights like most quadcopters do nowadays, 2 red, 2 blue. They're okay, they're not terribly bright. It would probably do okay at night. But anyway, going ahead and moving on to the actual flight review of this thing, it has been ridiculously fun to fly this thing. It has 3 different modes, beginner, intermediate, and expert. I, of course, immediately run off to the expert mode because I want to see exactly how fast this thing will go. But with those 3 modes, you do get 3 different yaw rates. The top-end yaw rate is not really all that fast. It's not as fast as some other things I've seen, but it is fast enough to get the job done. You can do some very nice little funnels with it, and it can fly pretty decently in the wind. Like I said before, it's supposedly a grade 3 or 4 in terms of the wind scale. And I took it out on a pretty decently windy day, and it was able to survive. I'm not going to say that it did amazingly well, but it kept up with the wind pretty nicely. I haven't really tested out the distance with it because my depth perception is a little bit weird, so I've kept it relatively close to me for the most part, but the times I've taken it farther away, it gets pretty decently far away. I'm talking at least 30 to 40 meters with no problems. And it does flips, of course. It does very nice, tight little flips, no problems there. And it can just zoom around back and forth, absolutely no problems, especially when you've got lower wind or no wind. It just takes off. I mean, you point it in a direction, it's so lightweight and it's so powerful that it just goes. But when you don't want it to go, it'll just sit there, it'll hover. It's really stable, rock solid, and for something that's that small and that lightweight, it's really surprising to see that it doesn't just immediately get shoved out of the way by the first breeze. Don't get me wrong, the breeze can grab it and can take off with it. You just have to be very, very careful about that. But the other really interesting feature about this thing that I actually haven't really got much experience with up to this point because other quadcopters I've used don't support it, is Headless Mode. It doesn't actually say anything about it in the manual, but when you push the throttle trim button, there are 2 of them, there's one for up and one down, push the throttle trim up button, it doesn't actually trim the throttle. It puts it into Headless Mode. So you can spin around, you can yaw all day and all night, but push forward on the stick, it's going to go away from you. Push back, it's going to come back toward you. And it remembers whatever heading it was set at whenever you turned on the Headless Mode. I think it's when you turn on the Headless Mode. And so it'll keep that as its relative point of positioning. So if you start to get pulled away or something, you can hit the Headless button, you pull it back toward yourself, and it immediately comes back to you. Very handy, very convenient. In addition, the throttle trim down button, it again does not do throttle trim down. It does sort of a return to home feature, but again, it doesn't work 100% right. Instead of doing return to home, it does straight back. So technically it is sort of returning to home, but it's not going straight back to where you are. It's going straight back from wherever it is. So it's not a feature I'm going to be using a huge amount. However, the headless mode can be a lot of fun for flying around with. But anyway, just to go ahead and wrap this thing up because I've been talking for a little while about it. This thing is small, it's fast, it's lightweight, it's nimble, it does amazing tricks. And I forgot to mention it before, the battery life, we're looking at around 5.5 minutes of flight time on this. And it does have an LVC warning, but all the times I've really been flying it have been out in the sun, so it's kind of hard to see that. The lights don't shine all that brightly when you're outdoors, in the sun at least. But I think it has between 30 and 45 seconds of LVC warning. But one way or another, about 5.5 minutes of flight time, definitely not bad. It's for something like this, especially considering it does have a 150 milliamp hour battery. You can get replacement batteries for it online. I think they're like $5 to $7 a piece on GearBest. And again, as you probably saw in the beginning, this quadcopter did come directly from GearBest. I do have to say thanks to them for sending it out. I've been having a ton of fun with it, and I do hope you guys have been enjoying the footage of it. If this looks like something that you're interested in, I'll have a link to their site where you can go check it out, as well as a coupon code to get you a discount on it. It is ridiculously low priced for a quadcopter. It's actually even a better price than some of the smaller ones that I've reviewed. So if you are looking for your first quadcopter, this might be an amazing place to start. Absolutely love this quadcopter, cannot recommend it highly enough, but that's going to be about all from me for today. Remember, if you like this video, if you like this style of video, hit the thumbs up button down below, subscribe to receive more videos when they become available. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.